seed versus number 6 seed. There you see Cam Adkins and Michael Bernat. Cam Adkins is on Shardless Bug and is up 2-0 here as we join the action. And Michael Bernat playing Esper Stoneblade.
Bernat's deck is a little unusual for this archetype. He has 3 Baleful Strix in his main deck. And
Okay.
in kind of a callback to the past, it always makes me think of a particular player that when you think of Lingering Souls and you think of Esper Stoneblade, do you think of anyone?
Sorry, what was that, Adrian?
When you think of Lingering Souls, are there any players that you think of Lingering Souls in Esper Stoneblade?
I think of Tom Martell.
That's what I think of. And that's what Michael Bernat has. He's got a Lingering Souls Baleful Strix build of Esper Stoneblade.
Tom Martell won a Legacy GP in Indianapolis with Esper Stoneblade and became famous for Lingering Souls. And then we made a token for him, a Star City Games token, promo token, with his likeness as a 1/1 spirit. So Ghost Martell here. We may see some of those Ghost Martell tokens from Michael Bernat then.
Now, both of these players have battled through hundreds of other competitors in order to be in this top 8. Cam Adkins' version of Bug has some interesting card choices. Most of the time you'd see 4 Baleful Strix in in this deck. Cam Adkins only running 2 of the main deck, and he manages to find room for 1 in the sideboard. But what is he doing with that extra space? Looks to me like, wow, a little bit more land. That's a part of it. 22 lands, 2 Baleful Strix, 2 Jace, 2 Liliana.
Is it possibly more Planeswalkers main deck? Or is 2/2 here pretty standard?
One Maelstrom Pulse is pretty standard. A lot of players only play 2 Force of Will. He's playing 3, so there's that 1 Force of Will extra that he has there.
Okay, so here we go. Game 3 action of this quarterfinal match. And we have word from one of our other tables that Brad Nelson, another Sneak and Show player, has taken the match from Maxwell Teets, who was playing Blue, White, Red Delver. So there you go, Max Teets, the other invitational previous winner in this top 8, taken out by Brad Nelson, who has called himself a standard specialist, but doing well in Legacy.
Yeah, Brad earlier this weekend was saying that one of the things that had happened, he had a game loss happen against one player simply because he had just not played as much of Sneak and Show as he needed to, and he should have had the win. Now, Brad, an excellent player, former player of the year, just goes to show you how complex and difficult this format can be.
Okay, and to catch you up on the action here, we did see a Deathrite Shaman from Cam, and Michael had a Swords to Plowshares for it. Now Cam he's searched up a Bayou with his Misty Rainforest. And will we see a Tarmogoyf here?
Now I notice on Twitter we have someone saying Gristlebrand cannot block Emrakul because Emrakul has protection from colors. That's not quite accurate. This is referring to our last match. It has protection from colored spells. When a card like Gristlebrand is in play, it is no longer a spell, it is a creature. So that's at Zosby. Thank you for that question there, and this is SCG Live. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Ricky Hayashi. You can see Cam Adkins on the right, up 2-0 versus Michael Bernat. Cam Adkins, I believe he is an Atlanta area player. I would need some confirmation on that, but I did see him hanging out with some other Atlanta people earlier, and Michael Bernat, a Chicago player.
A Chicago player, but it looks like he is wearing an Indianapolis Colts jersey there, representing the hometown team here.
He is famous for that jersey in the Chicago area. You can usually expect to see him wearing that at all of the events, and even though he's in Chicago, no one has beaten him up for it yet.
Well, we're not going to beat you up over your choice of which pro football team to follow.
Aren't you a cheesehead?
I am. But I respect all other fans for their choices, even if they are incorrect. And now, so Cam Adkins has a Baleful Strix that he casts, and Michael puts a Creeping Tar Pit onto the battlefield tapped. Creeping Tar Pit, a fantastic card in these matchups for killing Jace the Mind Sculptor.
And another note from our Twitter feed, I completely agree with Efro, that's at Efro Poker, who says to Chris Bakula, there is no apologizing and cheering for Huey. That's right, I'm cheering for Huey myself, but right now we have Michael Bernat and Cam Adkins here fighting this one out, and you can see just that tiny little Baleful Strix, the only thing here plicking away. Creeping Tar Pit, once it starts getting into things, will be able to do a little bit more damage, but this is just going to be a grind-style matchup. Esper Stoneblade versus Shardless Bug. Both of these decks essentially have tons of possibilities for card advantage, have great answers, and...
yeah, and there's some card advantage on the stack. A Hymn to Torok from Cam Adkins. And we see Michael sacrifice his Marsh Flats in response, so look for him to be perhaps casting a Brainstorm to hide his cards. Yeah, there you go.
Now, Brainstorm, one of the best things in Legacy is the ability to have your opponent make, actually, pardon, not your opponent, have any player have so many choices. It makes the game very skill testing. You're drawing 3 cards, you're putting 2 back. Brainstorm makes decks very, very good, but it also gives players the chance to make slightly wrong calls or even very wrong calls. One of the reasons I love this format is just all of those decisions that happen, they really add up.
Yeah. And speaking of calls, if you ever want to see a judge call for slow play, just give me a Brainstorm, and I will not be able to figure out what to do with it.
Here we have the Hymn to Torok finally hitting.
Okay. Random card. Random card, just show it.
And there they go. It's Inquisition and another Brainstorm. That's a pretty good hit for Cam Adkins.
So what did Michael hide with his Brainstorm to see those cards?
I kind of wonder if there's a Jace on top of his deck and maybe a land or 2 in his hand.
Yeah, Land Slam Jace, a classic Legacy play. And now...
Okay, good news for all of you Hall of Famer fans. William Jensen wins 3-1 versus Evan West and advances. That puts all Sneak and Show decks have moved forward. This is the only matchup left underway.
So for these guys, Sneak and Show is the enemy, and they're gonna. One of them is gonna see the enemy in the semifinals. Is that a ring?
It is. It's a reminder there for him to not forget that his ancestral vision is over there, ticking down slowly.
So I was going to ask you, Adrian, Cam Adkins here is up 2-0 in this quarterfinal matchup. Best of 5, so we may play up to 5 games. What does Michael Bernat need to do in this matchup to even it up at first and then win it potentially in 5 games? He's down.
Well, one of the things that is a real problem for Michael Bernat, for the most part, all of the former players who were advocates of the grindy power of Esper Stoneblade, look at that, we were talking about before, Jace as the next play after, there we go, and it hits the table. But one of the things that he needs to, that all of the previous Esper Stoneblade players were doing before is they were grinding out their opponents using incremental card advantage here and there. And starting about last year, Jerry Thompson really championed Shardless Bug as a deck that could do the same kind of plays as Esper Stoneblade, but was just better at it. And perhaps that's what we're seeing here, is that in this grind, Shardless Bug totally able to do the same kinds of plays, but with a little bit more power. Now, Ancestral Vision here ticking down, unfortunately for Cam Adkins. Jace the Mind Sculptor, incredibly hard to beat in this format once it hits play.
Yeah, I really agree with that. The Esper Stoneblades decks are so grindy, and then Shardless Bug is a similar grindy deck, but then it can kind of go over the top with Ancestral Vision, especially if you set it up to cascade into it off of your Shardless agent. That's just a lot of cards for not very much mana.
And we do have confirmation from Twitter. Cam Adkins is indeed an Atlanta player, as well as apparently an Is It fan. Brainstorm from Cam Adkins. Remember, he has a Shardless Agent in his hand. He can set up a very nice cascade here.
But he's already suspended one Ancestral Vision. Does he have another that he can hide back on top of his library and then cascade into?
If you don't know what Shardless Agent does, you shouldn't be too upset unless you're a Legacy aficionado. Shardless Agent is not printed in any of the regular sets. It's a blue-green 1 2/2 artifact creature with Cascade. Cascade then, any 2 casting cost spell or less that's on the top of the library, you keep flipping till you find one and cast it for free. You can see it right there. What a strange creature.
Robot James Bond, some of us have dubbed him, or her, I guess.
Shardless
Robot.
Agent, let's see what it reveals. Hymn to Turok.
That's a pretty good way to fight against the Jace, at least the card advantage of Jace.
I mean, it's those creatures in play, neither of them are very exciting to bounce with the Jace. We see, oh wow, Sword of Feast and Famine and Academy runes hit by that Hymn to Turok.
Yeah, that's a very fortunate hit for Cam. If he had just hit the sword without the Academy runes, Michael would have access to it later on. But now hitting the recursion land and the artifact
now
takes the problems away.
Jace has been, one of the all-stars of Legacy for some time. And looking at this board state, Michael Bernat in real trouble, even though he has a Jace out. He draws 3 cards. He's got to put 2 back, activating the 0 ability, the so-called Brainstorm ability of Jace. He's going to need to find something in order to get rid of those creatures. And Michael Bernat, he does have the point and click removal from a card like Swords to Plowshares in his deck. He's got Vindicate. He has access to a card he probably did not sideboard in, Massacre, because he does not want to spend the full amount, though it would kill all the creatures at this point. He's in some trouble right now.
Yeah, and normally Jace has that -1 ability to unsummon a creature that it can use to defend itself. You don't want to unsummon either of these creatures. Give your opponent another chance to cascade or cycle, draw another card with Baleful Strix. So these creatures ideal for fighting Jace despite their size.
Snapcaster, there we go. There's the beginning of what he needs to be doing here. Inquisition, what do you have over there? And we see Tarmogoyf. Is that a Umezawa's Jite at the bottom? I can't quite tell.
Well, Cam would not have Jite in his deck.
Nope, that is definitely not.
Those are
Tarmogoyf, Deathrite Shaman, and card.
Okay. That's a land, and it looks like Creeping Tar Pit.
There we go, Creeping Tar Pit. I couldn't quite make that one out. It gives him 2 targets, Tarmogoyf or Deathrite Shaman. He goes for Deathrite Shaman.
Decides that that's the bigger threat. Very interesting.
Lays a fetch land.
Registration includes a Mythic Madness envelope.
So that Snapcaster Mage is going to be able to stand in the way and trade with the Shardless Agent,
Goes
protecting Jace.
Down to 17 life with a fetch. And now only the Baleful Strix can get through without having somebody in the way.
Yeah, so Michael, for the time being, looks like he will get another activation off his Jace the Mind Sculptor on his next turn, unless Cam can remove that Snapcaster
Oh,
Mage.
2 more mana. What's this? Rest in peace.
Okay, that's a good reason to leave Tarmogoyf in your opponent's hand.
And it's funny because both Deathrite Shaman and Tarmogoyf, neither of them are particularly exciting with Rest in Peace in play. But
Deathrite Shaman's better. It's a 1/2 as opposed to a 0/1.
And down it ticks. The clock going down. Ancestral Vision down to 2. If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan with Ricky Hayashi. And you can see Cam Adkins up 2-0 versus Michael Bernat. Baleful Strix, Shardless Agent with a suspended Ancestral Visions at 2. Coming in, Shardless Agent trading with the Snapcaster Mage in play. Jace, the Mind Sculptor, down to 1. Rest in Peace and Jace the Mind Sculptor and an empty hand versus, wow, look at that. Double
Wow.
Tarmogoyf, old school and
And you
new school.
And you see Michael, the chuckle there as his shoulders go up and down, sees that Cam has drawn a second Tarmogoyf on this field with Rest in Peace. So those guys are 0-1s. Usually I have a clever quip about the power and toughness of Tarmogoyf and what green creature it matches, what green vanilla creature it matches. There is no 0-1 green vanilla creature.
You know, why bother with green? Why not just go to the old kobolds? Kobolds and squires.
I like to match as much as possible. So yeah, green kobolds on the field.
Michael Bernat, another 0 activation of Jace. Normally I would say someone is being buried by the Jace after 3 activations like that, but really what it feels like is Michael Bernat trying to keep up.
The board is fairly even, but the Ancestral Vision looming. Okay, so Michael Bernat.
Decisions to make.
Rainstorm. Jace Storm.
Now those Tarmogoyfs in play, to me they look like they're potential brainstorm fodder. I'm not sure if I would want them in play right now.
Is there any reason for him to have them in play?
Well, if he draws a abrupt decay, they can attack immediately. That's the question. It's the balance of abrupt decay versus brainstorm fodder.
So if Cam does have an abrupt decay or possibly a Maelstrom Pulse for the Rested Piece, what would happen is the Rested Piece would be destroyed as part of the spell's effect, and it would exile itself because it's a replacement effect, but once it's off the battlefield, whatever spell destroys it would go to the graveyard, is what you're saying, and the Tarmogoyfs would be 1/2s.
Poor Jace.
Died to Owl.
And look at that. Wasteland. There's a Creeping Tar Pit in play that he can waste at any time. And right now, that Ancestral Vision looks very dangerous.
Well, he's empty-handed. Should he also have attacked with his Creeping Tar Pit? Perhaps missing 3 points of damage there, Adrian?
Maybe.
It's unblockable, so it gets through, and you cannot block your opponent's Tar Pit.
There's some sort of discussion going on between Michael Bernat and Cam Adkins. We see 4 mana. Is this going to be another Jace?
I'm not sure whose turn it is right now. I don't know if Cam definitively passed the turn before we got into this discussion. We'll find out in just a moment what's going on. But yeah, for the time being, I feel like Cam has missed a chance to attack with Creeping Tar Pit. And we've just been told that they are asking for Oracle text on Ancestral Vision.
I believe it's a target player draws 3 cards. And I think that might be what Michael Bernat is asking about.
Is there a misdirection looming in his...
Well, Michael Bernat has Notion Thieves in his sideboard.
Okay.
So, let's see there. You can see it. Sorcery, no casting cost. That means that without sneaky things, you can't cast it. Suspend for blue, for a suspend of 4, target player draws 3 cards. And then you can see the suspend text telling you what suspend does.
So now he's probably asking a follow-up question about the Notion Thief.
Well, it might be something else as well.
Yes! I'm salivating. Oh, Notion Thief.
Yeah, the question I believe that Michael Bernat is asking is whether or not you can not cast the suspend spell.
Well, that's a good question. Let's double check the Oracle text on that ourselves.
Wow, Umezawa's Jite. Maybe I should take it all back. I was saying that it looked like Michael Bernat was in trouble, but his opponent here, Creeping Tar Pit, is able to block, but nothing else can block. So I think Michael Bernat, he's going to probably equip that Umezawa's Jite and then pass, lest his Notion Thief somehow be killed.
Alright, I'm stuck here. My internet has gone down.
Notion Thief.
I'm almost certain that you have to... Oh, thank you. You have to cast this, right? Does not say may at the beginning of Keef. Yeah, play it without paying its mana cost.
Yeah.
So unless there's some restriction on being able to cast it, you have to cast it.
And equip the Jite? Or is he perhaps going to attack with the Creeping Tar Pit for 3?
Yeah, Michael Bernat has a lot of options now out of nowhere. It seemed like maybe 1-2 turns ago he was behind trying to catch up, now way ahead.
See, Cam Adkins there wastes the Creeping Tar Pit.
Yep.
And the thing, and here we go, Ancestral Visions. Can't not cast it apparently, and there's the Notion Thief in play. The first time that I saw Notion Thief do anything, it was against Jace the Mind Sculptor in the top 8. Osip and I were watching the match, and wow, that was amazing.
Okay, so you see the spotter judge walk away. That was John Aldifer, level 3 from the Pittsburgh area. He's going off to get the head judge because the ruling has been appealed.
Yeah, Cam Adkins is saying, I don't want to cast it. I don't think I should have to cast it.
You have to.
Well, we'll find out. The head judge is going to make that final ruling, and that's going to be what'll stand. So that'll be the question mark.
Yeah, my ruling is you have to cast it.
I'm not a judge anymore.
It's been a while since I've had to think about that, but nothing, at least on the reminder text, nothing seems to indicate that you have the option.
Now, if you haven't ever seen Notion Thief before, if you get a chance, go watch Justin Uppel get Notion Thief by Lauren Nolan. Wow, that is one of the most exciting bits of Magic memory.
You were
I was
the commentator.
there, and me and Osip were there, and some genius out there also captured it in a moving GIF, so you can see it again and again. Justin, like, his brain literally going out the back of his head.
It was a double take too, because first, like, the Notion Thief hits, he's like, "Oh no, you draw 3 cards," and you said it was a response to the Jace Brainstorm, right?
Yeah, then he has to put the 2 back.
It's like, you still have to put 2 back. He's like, "Really?" And just like looks at the judge like, "I had to put 2, but I didn't draw any cards."
Yep, and then and then the Notion Thief killed the Jace.
Oh, so it was 2-3 times the misery.
It was one of the most disgusting things I'd ever seen, and in fact, the judge on this at the table at the time, Jeff Foster, briefly lost it and just started laughing before he composed himself. Now we're going to find out. Yeah, the head judge does make the ruling. You must cast it.
Yep, no may. And so Michael Bernat has drawn cards. Cam Atkins still draws for his turn.
And then look at this. No defense is available. Now there's some tapped mana. Cam Atkins apparently attacked with his Creeping Tar Pit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I like
damage.
that at all, actually, because that Creeping Tar Pit was actually holding off that Notion Thief. So now Michael Bernat can equip the Notion Thief with Umezawa's Jite and really start tearing up the board.
Can still trade the Baleful Strix with its Death Touch for the Notion Thief.
Can he, though? Can he?
You don't need the Death
Can
Touch,
he?
in fact. Oh. So this is what you're saying, have 2 blockers back in case of a removal spell.
I mean, Michael Bernat has drawn 4 cards since the last turn, 3 from the Ancestral and 1 from the draw phase.
You're just 1 step ahead of me there. 1 step ahead of Cam Atkins even, I suppose. So yes, now Notion Thief attacks those 2 Tarmogoyfs you see on the board. 0/1s because of Rest in Peace, blanking the Tarmogoyfs. And now Notion Thief, equipped with Umezawa's Jite, connects with a Tarmogoyf. It chump blocks, but still acquires 2 charge counters.
I'm not sure if I like that play by Cam Adkins. I think he should have blocked with the older Tarmogoyf. Sorry, the newer Tarmogoyf. The old one is much prettier. Oh, look at this. Liliana of the Veil.
Not bad.
Oh, does it resolve? Apparently so.
Well, Michael's got some kind of blue card in his hand. Maybe we'll see him cast a Brainstorm. But it looks like it's resolved. They put a loyalty die on it. And you see that Liliana of the Veil signed in silver pen by artist Steve Argyle. And sacrifice, so activates the ability sacrifice a creature. Notion Thief gets sacrificed. And now Michael brainstorms in his main phase, looking for another creature, perhaps, to wield the pointy stick, Umezawa's Jite. Puts back a land and another card, and he does have a fetch land in his hand, so this brainstorm in the main phase, he can reset the top of his library afterwards.
Well, the Notion Thief did so much there that it looks to me like Michael Bernat is deeply in charge of this game, but Liliana still has something to say about it. Land, discard, let's both discard. My hand's empty. What are you going to discard? And he's like, yeah, my hand's empty. So Michael Bernat discards a card. Looks like the Creeping Tar Pit's going to come in. And are we going to say Umezawa's Jite kill it? Bernat thinking about it. He might want to save it for a rainy day.
Yeah, might need those counters to pump up a creature in the future to fight with Liliana if her loyalty keeps going up. So yeah, Michael chooses to take 3 damage and leave the counters.
Yeah, and he's using his life total as a resource there. We have a question from Little American Punk on Twitter who asks, wouldn't it be okay just to not cast it? You could forget a Vile trigger. Wouldn't it be the same? Well, here's the thing. You're supposed to remember your own triggers. Now, let's pretend that Cam accidentally forgot to do the trigger. Well, then that would be something that could happen. But Michael Bernat, the opponent, would be able to say, you know what, I want you to do that.
Yeah.
And then you would be forced to.
You can accidentally miss your triggers. If you do, your opponent has the choice of whether you get the trigger or not, and most certainly Michael would choose to have him resolve those triggers.
But you cannot purposefully forget mandatory triggers.
Absolutely
and
not.
that is a mandatory trigger. So I mean, let's pretend Cam was like, oops, I forgot. There would be a real point of, especially with the ring he's been putting as a reminder on his deck.
We would be
I
calling
would
the
be
head
like,
judge
you know,
over
that
for
seems a little sketchy.
we'd be calling the head judge Jason Reedy over for a different reason there. So on Twitter, Nathan Long at Nate Dog with 2 G's 316 confirms, yep, you have to cast the Visions if able. If there was something like Sphere of Resistance on the board, you could not cast it. Nathan is a level 2 judge from Durango, Colorado. I know him very well, and he's confirming, the ruling, and also pointing out that yes, so if there's a Sphere of Resistance, Adrian, something that increases the cost, you can choose not to pay the cost and just not cast the spell. Okay, so Chris Lansdale is asking on Twitter, who's the head judge of the Invitational? I actually just said it. It's Jason Reedy, level 3 from Roanoke, Virginia.
And we see a Pernicious Deed attempted to drop on the table. That would have been amazing for Cam. And instead, we see a brief counterspell war, Force of Will stopping that from happening.
Yeah, meanwhile, what's happened is Snapcaster Mage flashed in, picked up the Jite, and then took out Liliana.
A little pump action there, trying to shorten this game up before anything else could go wrong.
So you see the 3 counters there. It happened just as you speculated, Adrian, that Michael should keep the counters on the Jite in order to be able to pump a creature in the future.
We see a pretty innocuous Shardless Agent. It gets a Deathrite Shaman. Not so exciting.
Not exciting. All it can really do is buy some time. That Umezawa's Jite now with 3 counters can pump itself. The Snapcaster Mage can pump itself out of range.
And Cam Adkins does not block. Now, earlier in the game when Cam Adkins set up his Shardless Agent, he put back Hymn to Torok directly on top of his library. I kind of wonder if he should have put a land and then a Hymn to Torok. He looks pretty flooded right now, and skipping through that land would have been fairly nice.
Deathrite just chump blocks.
We see a pump to have Snapcaster survive, and then 2 more tokens are added to Umezawa's Jite.
So we are being asked on Twitter, Adrian, what is the video of the Notion Thief stealing a Brainstorm draw? Do you remember which event that was from?
That was Justin Uppel versus Lauren Nolan. That was Osip and I were doing the commentary. And I want to say that that was in Tennessee.
Tennessee? So possibly Nashville? I thought it might have been...
Nashville,
Okay.
that is correct.
All right, Nashville. So look at the coverage of the Nashville Open from earlier this year and look for Justin Uppel and Lauren Nolan's match in the Legacy Open. You can also look up on StarCityGames.com. Lauren Nolan wrote a tournament report about that tournament, or maybe just about that match or deck, and there's also a short video clip, I believe, in that report from the incident in question, Notion Thief on Jace Brainstorm.
Now is Michael Bernat going to take this game away? We see a Baleful Strix joins the party, and Cam Adkins looking at his hand. Force of Will and Engineered Explosives, both good cards.
Yeah, so...
Takes the Force of Will. I think that's a good play. Like, if Cam Adkins is able to draw some powerful spell, he wants to be able to cast it and not have the effort gone to waste. Passes the turn.
He would need a lot of power here. Even Liliana of the Veil not going to get it done. Now Michael has two creatures, Snapcaster Mage and Baleful Strix.
Looking at the cards that I see in Cam Adkins' 75 cards, the only thing I can see saving him is a Shardless Agent into Ancestral Visions through the Cascade, and then the Ancestral Visions getting him some action.
Cards. Yeah, Pernicious Deed, a one-card answer, but that was dealt with earlier, countered earlier by Michael. Oh, now Jace the Mind Sculptor. Sure, why not? Brainstorm ability, the 0 ability. Draws 3 cards, puts 1 back. Puts 2 back. Thinks about it. Maybe this other one. So now we were saying, what does Michael Bernat need to do to get this match back to even? This is game 3 out of a potential 5. His back was to the wall, but he's fought back in this game. It was very close earlier on. It may even have been, it looked like Cam Adkins had an advantage early, but through the use of a Jace the Mind Sculptor, sculpting his own hand, finding a timely Umezawa's Jite, and now taking over the game is Michael Bernat with Esper Stoneblade here over Cam Adkins playing Shardless Bug. This is the StarCityGames.com Open Series featuring the Invitational. This is the quarterfinals of said Invitational.
I'd like to give a little thanks to Super Fluffy Kitty, who, if you're following at SCG Live and hashtag SCGINVI, in hashtag SCGINVI, there is a link to the Twitch coverage of that Lauren Nolan, Justin Uppel match. Thank you for that. I'm going to make sure to also retweet that, but make sure that you're following at SCG Live and the conversation, hashtag SCGINVI. There's a lot of value, I think. If you're a Twitter person, Magic and Twitter seem to have become very much a part of helping make Magic a much bigger game.
Twitterer. I am a Twitterer as well. You can follow me at MTG Wikipedia. You can follow Adrian at Adrian L. Sullivan. What does the L stand for?
Lee.
Lee.
That's right.
Well, that's very interesting because 2 of our SCG Live directors also have the middle name Lee. Did you know that?
I did not. We see our sideboards here. Michael Bernat and Cam Adkins. Michael Bernat, we already saw the Sword of Feast and Famine in this game 3, so he has certainly sideboarded that in. We've seen the Notion Thief. He's got 2 of them. Now, this was a card when...
You're only supposed to have 1.
When this was a card when it was printed, people were pretty excited about the interaction with Brainstorm, with Jace, with other cards, and it was kind of talked about like this, like, hoo-hoo, wouldn't that be so cool?
Yeah, it is cool.
And, you know, the thing is, now that we've actually seen it in Legacy play, it has proven itself to be just devastating in the games where it resolves. Rest in Peace, also in the sideboard, definitely brought in against this Tarmogoyf Deathrite Shaman deck. I wonder if Cam Adkins is rethinking his plan now that he had that Rest in Peace destroy his side of the board, making 2 Tarmogoyfs, and over the course of the game, 3 Deathrite Shamans become null and void.
Yeah, that was a huge play. The Rest in Peace when it came down. At the time, we and Michael knew that Cam had 1 Tarmogoyf in his hand after taking a look with Inquisition of Kozilek. And then after the Rest in Peace resolved, Cam slammed down 2 Tarmogoyfs. He immediately drew a second one, both of them 0-1 green kobolds. Okay, so Michael Bernat has finally gotten on the board. He is still down 1 game to 2 to Cam Adkins. Needs to win another one to even it up at 2-all, and then would need to win a 3rd in a row to take this match.
Yeah, I mean, it's been done before. Now, we saw that Jace the Mind Sculptor for Michael Bernat. When that Jace the Mind Sculptor hit play, it was only barely keeping Michael Bernat alive, and that final turn of the Jace the Mind Sculptor's life was essentially setting up where he had Snapcaster to help clear the board a little bit, and Rest in Peace go.
Yeah. It was the Snapcaster into flashing back the Inquisition, taking Deathrite Shaman, leaving the Tarmogoyf, and I said, why would you leave the Tarmogoyf? Well, because he had Rest in Peace.
Yep, empty hand, and then the Jace dispatched, but right after that, didn't take very long before essentially everything cleared up, and Notion Thief, that ticking down of the Ancestral, there it went, and you know what?
Notion Thief
Wow.
taking Ancestral Vision.
I mean, when I look at the art for Notion Thief, I'm not sure if you've thought about this, but for me it looks a little bit like Skylar, the villain in Heroes.
You mean Sylar?
Sylar, yeah, thank you. Sylar, the villain in Heroes.
Played by Zachary Quinto,
Yeah.
the new Spock in the Star Trek movies.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, it says Skylar, it's funny. Yeah, Sylar, and I feel like there's this way, what does he do? He steals your powers.
Yeah, by eating your brain.
Yeah, I wonder if that's intentional, that art.
I don't know. I think Notion Thief, it's drawn by Clint Kearley, who we have seen, an artist, has joined us on the Open Series several times. He's based out of Dallas-Fort Worth, so we'll be seeing him in a couple of weeks at the Dallas Open. I actually think it might be like a self-portrait. I haven't looked closely enough and compared it to Clint, but it may be a self-portrait. Many artists do that. Rob Alexander on several occasions has kind of drawn himself into art that he does for Magic cards. Okay, shuffling up here, these players going to game number 4.
You can see these players. Michael Bernat looks very animated. He's got a lot of energy. And it looks like Cam Adkins, I believe this is his first time under the camera here at SCG Live. And you can see he looks ready to play, but a little nervous. And I know that both of these players have gone through a lot to get here. The Invitational, 328 players. And these are 328 players who have either won the various Invitational qualifiers that have been held throughout the country. And if you want to play in the Invitational, if you can get an Invitational qualifier at your store, it's not that hard. Tell your store to contact Star City Games, starcitygames.com/IQ.
Yeah, and the next Invitational will be coming up very shortly. It's going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, Sin City. That's going to be on December 13th through 15th. So just a few short months away. Our next Invitational in Las Vegas. Make sure you're qualified for it. Make sure to be there. I imagine there's going to be quite a party. Yeah? Are you going to be there, Adrian?
I'm not sure yet. Still working on my plans for that one. And the other thing about this, besides the IQ winners, we have all of the people that have done well at these Star City Games Open events. We've got our champions and our other top finishers from our Star City Games Opens all here. Cam Adkins on the play in this game 4 of the best of 5.
Yeah, the Open Series coming to a city near you. Next week it's going to be in Los Angeles, California, alongside the Kamikaze Expo. And then the week after that, as I mentioned, they'll be in Dallas-Fort Worth. And then we're taking a week off. Grand Prix Washington, D.C. is very close to the home office in Roanoke, so they're devoting a lot of resources to that event, even though it's not being run by Star City Games. And then the week after that, they'll be in Providence, Rhode Island. So all over the country, the Open Series come into town. If you top 8, you qualify for an invitational, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, one of the things, that Washington, D.C. Grand Prix being run by TJ's Collectibles, and those of you who are Magic historians might remember William Jensen had long, for years, been sponsored by TJ's Collectibles, so you would see him at all of those old Magic events with his TJ's Collectibles t-shirt.
Okay. A little bit of history. I like that bit of history. And Huey is into the semifinals. So let's recap what's happened on the other matches. The first camera match we had on here, we saw Jerry Thompson versus Brian Braun the Sneak and Show Mirror. BBD, the Grand Prix Louisville champion, moving on to the semifinals here. He won 3 games to 0. And in the next round, in the semifinals, BBD is going to be facing good friend Brad Nelson, also on Sneak and Show. He defeated Max Tietz, a former Invitational champion himself, 3 games to 1. Now these two competitors, Cam Adkins and Michael Bernat, they know, or at least we know, they probably know too, that they will be facing Sneak and Show as well in the semifinals, whoever wins this, and that is being piloted by the MTG Pro Tour Hall of Famer, Huey Jensen.
We see lands facing off against each other with no other help. Michael Bernat on the left with Esper Stoneblade, Cam Adkins on the right with Shardless Bug.
Take a look at the number.
And a brainstorm here from Cam.
4152.
This looks like a main phase brainstorm on his second turn.
I think I see a surgical extraction in his hand. There it is. Yeah, surgical extraction. He puts back an Abrupt Decay. He's got Baleful Strix, Brainstorm, some lands, and that might have been a new print Modern Masters Tarmogoyf, but I'm not sure.
Yes, it is. Tarmogoyf drawn by Ryan Barger in Modern Masters. Could be Barger.
Michael Bernat takes turn 2. Now Michael Bernat missing a land drop. He did mulligan this game. Cam Adkins fetches right now. He is going to be shuffling away the 2 cards. That was an Abrupt Decay and a Surgical Extraction that he is shuffling away.
Yeah, that could have been a bit of a hedge there, putting those situational cards back, right? Because maybe if Michael makes a play here, he wants to draw the Abrupt Decay and cast it. But seeing no play and no second land drop, Cam wants to reset his library and find some creatures now to take advantage of this little hiccup by Michael Bernat. So we may see that Tarmogoyf come down here as an Elvish Warrior just to put some early pressure on Michael. No, it's going to be Baleful Strix instead. Cycle. Draws a Polluted Delta. Now he's got a 1/1 Flying Death Touch on the battlefield. Says go.
Anything, there's a land. That's a swamp. Basic swamp, basic plains. Well, if he's got a Stoneforge Mystic, he's at least got some action. Inquisition? No, Thoughtseize.
Cam's going to fetch with the Misty Rainforest and probably cast a Brainstorm here to hide some of his key cards like that Tarmogoyf. Once again, Michael Bernat missed his second land drop, so a little bit behind in board development, and Cam is going to want to take advantage of that. He may also be able to set up a good Shardless Agent Cascade here if he finds one.
1, 2, 3. Land, and is that a third land? There's at least Wasteland and one other land. We see a Pernicious Deed that's in his hand, a bunch of land.
So probably just going to show
Tarmogoyf.
Can he show a full hand of lands to Michael Bernat?
Shardless Agent. So he's setting up the Shardless Agent into Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, how about that?
And a bunch of cards that mostly are not a big deal. Pernicious Deed is actually a more powerful card, but not necessarily when your opponent has nothing going on. Whoa, here we go, Thoughtseize. You can take my Abrupt Decay, you can take my Pernicious Deed.
Yep. Kind of a blank Thoughtseize there, taking a removal spell, but not really what Michael wants to see. He wanted to be able to take a creature or at least something, you know, like a blue spell right there. And as you said, Cam Adkins set up the top of his library with the Brainstorm to be Tarmogoyf and Shardless Agent on top of that. So he's going to draw Shardless Agent, cast it, and cascade into Tarmogoyf and really develop a board here now.
I see a Swords to Plowshares in Michael Bernat's hand. And I think I also see a Stoneforge Mystic Brainstorm Force of Will.
Very subtly important here is the fact that Michael does not know that Tarmogoyf is lurking. And yeah, that's just about to say, if he takes that deed, it's going to pump the Tarmogoyf even more, being an enchantment. Wow. That could be an extra point of damage there that's going to make a big difference. You see lands, instants, and sorceries with the Thoughtseize, Brainstorm, and Fetch lands, but the enchantment now going to pump the Tarmogoyf one further after he cascades into it off the Shardless Agent.
That Wasteland of Cam Adkins is actually really valuable. There's only one more basic land in Michael Bernat's deck, and as soon as he draws a land, most of the lands that he draws will be able to be destroyed by Cam Adkins. A note from again, Super Fluffy Kitty, saying, who apparently knows Cam, that he's not nervous but writhing in anticipation. One of the things I know playing against Patrick Chapin a lot, if you've watched Patrick Chapin play, people often say, wow, is he nervous? Is that what's going on? No, when Patrick Chapin plays, he just has a lot of energy. He's very animated, and that's just the way some people play.
Classic players, your pairings are now posted. Please find your seat.
And Yaz Wiggins asks on Twitter, did Michael Bernat bluff not having a turn 2 land, or did I see that he had a dual land in hand right now? I think you did see. Certainly he would have played it by now.
Stoneforge Mystic is going through the deck trying to find something, a Batterskull perhaps. Sword of Feast and Famine, another card that he has boarded in. Umezawa's Jite, the last card he could just select from, and he goes with, it looks like Batterskull.
I don't know about that because he's constrained on mana. He only has the 2 lands, and he left Cam Adkins with an Abrupt Decay in hand. He took the Pernicious Deed. So seeing this, Cam Adkins is going to Snapcast Abrupt Decay on Stoneforge Mystic, right, Adrian? I mean, this...
Well, and you mean by that, you mean Snap Space Cast, not Snapcast, as in Snapcaster Mage, just to be clear.
Lowercase Snapcast.
Yes, I hear you.
So yeah, showing that Batterskull, he's not going to be able to cast that. It costs 5 mana, so I probably would have gotten Jite just because at least you can cast it and then maybe use it if you draw more creatures.
We see another Tarmogoyf from Cam Adkins. You can really see, I mean, obviously Michael Bernat not having the best game here. He mulligans, he misses a land drop. That's not the ideal situation. Another Tarmogoyf. We see there's a Force of Will in Michael Bernat's hand. Now, a lot of people sideboard out some number of Force of Wills in this matchup. Michael Bernat runs 4 main. One of the reasons you don't really like Force of Will in the grindiness of the matchup, but when I say they sideboard out some Force of Will, usually the reason they side out only some Force of Will is that there are cards you just have to stop, and there aren't very many ways to do it. Now, Michael Bernat replacing the Stoneforge Mystic with a new Stoneforge Mystic, this time getting Sword of Feast and Famine.
Okay, so this is a reason why he may have gotten Batterskull first, because he has the second Stoneforge Mystic, and he was expecting his first Stoneforge Mystic to bite the dust, cast the second one, get another piece of equipment, and then start being able to activate and drop the equipment into play. Alright, so Michael Bernat, I apologize for second guessing you. You knew what was in your hand, and you had a good sequence of plays in mind. But Cam Adkins has drawn another removal spell. That is Maelstrom Pulse. So he can now take out this Stoneforge Mystic, attack for 3 again, and really start to apply the pressure with that Baleful Strix and Shardless Agent.
The rest of his hand, is that all land? I see an Underground Sea, Maelstrom Pulse, and I think that last one's a fetch land.
And the Creeping Tar Pits too. Adrian, would you Creeping Tar Pit attack, or would you Maelstrom Pulse here?
I'd Pulse just to get that guy off the table.
Okay. And that's what he does.
And then You attack for your 3, and next turn you can start working with your creeping tar pit as well. Michael
Okay.
Bernat looking for something here. Oh, look at that. That seems to be like
no
a...
land. He drew the GT, or maybe he already had it in his hand, and that could also explain him getting Batterskull. But yeah, 6 points of damage here, and that's going to be all she wrote. Cam Adkins with the Wasteland as well.
That's
yeah.
it. Michael Bernat falls 3-1 to Atlanta's Cam Adkins. I know we had several people on Twitter. That's the hashtag